I didn't get into this to make money. I just really wanted to know how these things are made and get more hands-on with it.
When do you decide one day like, hey, I'm gonna mod a watch?
And when you have 3 million views on a particular model, a lot of inquiries are going to come in for that. And when I can only produce about 5 of them, it's a problem.
Oh my God. So what is an example of a watch that you've been really impressed with lately? Welcome back to another episode. Today I have a special guest. He's one of my friends named Eric, but you may know him as LumeShot.
Hello everyone, my name is Eric. I run the channel and the social Instagrams called LumeShot.
Having known you for years and being friends, like I've been always wanting to sit down with you and do like a video where we talk about how you got into watches, all about LumeShot and like some projects that you're currently working on.
When you wanted to do a video on this, I had to sit down for a second and just think about how did I get into all of this? Because it's been so long and I just don't know the exact moment where it started.
Before we get into the whole history of how you started, let's talk about the watch that you're wearing on the wrist today.
So today, as you probably know, I don't really wear that many watches, but this is my Royal Oak 26315 ST for anyone who cares about reference numbers. This is a chronograph Royal Oak. It is 38 millimeters, has this really nice silver tapisserie dial and blue subdials. And so people call this the Blue Panda. Super cool. I really like this watch. The size is just great. I noticed on your wrist too, you also have a familiar face on there.
Well, I purposely wore this watch too. This is also the AP Royal Oak chronograph in 38 millimeters. I have to say that being friends with you, you've influenced me that this watch looks so awesome. So I decided that I would go out and try to get one. And this is now one of my favorite watches in my collection. It's slightly different from the version you have because they're kind of made in different generations, but everything else is pretty much the same. But the more I see yours with the Blue Panda layout, I really love how it has the blue subdials on it, because mine has like no contrast. It's just tone on tone. All right, so how did LumeShot start? When did you get into watches?
So I've always had hobbies growing up. It was around my years in uni. I think my first year in uni where I developed an interest in watches, like hardcore interest, opposed to just thinking they were cool. Because growing up, my dad always had a Seiko on, just a quartz operated chronograph with a tachometer on it. I always thought it was a rotating bezel, so I tried to force it to rotate. But it would never rotate, so I thought it was just broken. Later on, did I realize I was just being kind of stupid and just uninformed of what it was. And I did what most people did is I bought like 8 Seikos.
Wow.
Because they were all affordable and there's just so many of them. That really bit the bug. And then as I started to get more into watches, I started learning more brands and what's out there really. Of course, everyone knows what Rolex is. And I thought that was the end all be all. And so I told myself, oh, I'm gonna try to get that Submariner one day. And this was back at the time where the prices weren't as bad as I would say. They were kind of reasonable. And so the old Submariners with the aluminum bezels, you can get them without a bracelet because I was super poor, didn't have any money, broke college kid. You could get a head-only Submariner for about $3,000 to $3,500.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I gotta work like 2 summer jobs maybe, and maybe I'll be able to get one. And so that's where it all kicked off in terms of the interest in watches.
What was the purpose of buying 8 Seikos?
I just wanted to see what it was really. And so once I actually bought them, I realized, oh, this is a chronograph. You have to push this thing to get the timer to move. A diver doesn't have a timer except for the rotating bezel. All these little features, it was a lot easier to digest once I actually had them in hand and I was actually wearing it.
How much do these like Seikos cost? Because you bought 8 of them. You were in college as a university student.
So they weren't all at once.
Okay.
I bought one and then I sold it.
Okay.
And then which helped me pay for the next one. And so I just wanted to handle as many as I can.
You just want to experience them.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of just going to boutique, because I was kind of scared, honestly.
Yeah.
Being a college kid with his book bag, going around to these boutiques in New York City. Even if it was a Seiko, watches were still like this expensive luxury that I always perceived growing up. And so even going to a watch boutique, I didn't know what the environment was like. I don't know how seriously they would take this college kid. And so online in general was the only way for me to see these watches. It was like my online boutique.
So you got these watches, you're learning about watches now. When do you decide one day like, hey, I'm gonna mod a watch?
Based on my personality, I've always been one to go very hands-on with things. I wanted to just sit down and just learn how these things are made. And of course, I go online, try to search up how watches are made. That was kind of being overzealous of me because once I started reading about it, I didn't understand anything. Like, what are all these gears, these bridges, these pallets, the spring? Like, it was too much information for me to digest. What really stuck with me was the very simple assembly process, you know? So I broke it down into a watch is basically a case, of movement, a dial, hands, crystal, and maybe a bezel. And that made it a lot less scary for me to understand. As I was reading more on those topics, like how do hands go on a movement, I somehow came across Seikos and how people would service Seikos or just work on Seikos being such a price-friendly brand where if you break it, it isn't as devastating. Because back then you can get like a Seiko 5 for about $50, like the SNK 807s. Even though $50 was a lot for me, I was like, if I don't try to do this now, I probably will never try to attempt opening any watch. And so I bought an SNK and I took it apart. Didn't know what I was doing, but somehow I put it back together and it was working. But taking it apart wasn't like the watchmaker way of disassembling the movement and everything. I just took out the movement, the dial, and the hands. I was really satisfied. And so I was researching more about, okay, so if these parts come together like Legos in a sense, are there other parts that I can put into this?
Whoa.
And so it was very hard to find information on this because people weren't really messing with Seikos in that kind of way. It wasn't customized to the extent that it is today. So there was very few resources for you to learn what parts are compatible, if there are parts at all. Through like servicing forums, I realized that you could interswap some movements between Seiko models. The 7S26 movement on the SKX 007 can be swapped out for a 436, which is found on the Seiko Turtles. And even further, the 6R15 movement found on other models, they can all fit in the same cases because their dimensions are pretty much the same.
Whoa, okay. I see what you mean now. For our viewers who may not know all the references and the movements, I know Eric and I know them really well, but Eric is talking about like, okay, first the classic SKX 007. So that's the one with the date, black dial, black bezel. And there was two sizes. You can get the SKX 013 as well. That's the smaller one. He's talking about the larger one. That's the 42. Is that right? But it doesn't wear like a 42. And so he was able to take that movement out and now put in the movements from the Seiko Turtle, another line, but completely different from the SKX series. And then on top of that, he mentioned like the 6R15s, which is something you'll see in like Seiko Lux or like the $1,000 Seikos that even our store has.
The interest in swapping these movements came out when I bought an SKX 007. And that was still kind of earlier on where I didn't really know much about mechanical movements. I was getting a feel of what it was like to have a watch that wasn't battery powered or solar powered or kinetic. You had to wear it and get that rotor to oscillate, basically feed the movements in a sense. As I was researching more about it, I realized, oh, so there's automatic movements, manual movements. Some automatic movements have the ability to hand wind, others don't have the ability to hand wind. And so when I learned about that fact, I felt kind of sad because my SKX can't be hand wound. You had to wear it or shake it around to charge up the movement to get it to run. And I didn't like that. And so that's probably how I got into the other movements from like the Seiko Turtles and such, where I realized the 436, you can hand wind it. From there on, I probably thought, can I put this movement in the SKX? Somehow I probably figured out that you could. So if I can put the 436 into the Seiko SKX, I can have an automatic movement and hand winding, kind of like an upgraded SKX. And while reading the forums, I know a lot of people complained about this as well. They wish it was hand wound or wish it had an updated movement or something like that. I went on eBay, I think, and I bought a 436 movement.
You just bought the movement.
I just bought the movement. I bought a cheap tool set from somewhere, who knows. Took out the movement, put in the new 436, and I realized, oh, you had to get a different crown as well. Because the 7S26 movement, the crown stem mechanism, it's not meant for winding up a movement. So the crown from like a Seiko Turtle is built different from a SKX. It wouldn't allow cross compatibility really. So I had to research, okay, what crown can I put in this SKX to get it to hand wind? Because I know this movement has the ability to, just the physical parts aren't able to. So I had to research and I figured out that a vintage Seiko 7002, I think. Back then, the crown stem assembly was that the stem can be unscrewed from the stem itself.
Yeah, you can just unscrew it like counterclockwise and it comes off.
Correct.
Which is like such a weird feature. There's a lot of watches that do that. And sometimes you're trying to set the time and then you unscrew the crown. And you're like, did I just break the watch? It's so weird when watches do that.
Yeah, maybe that's why they don't do it anymore. The SKX itself has like a fixed construction where you can't take apart the crown and the stem.
Okay.
And so you had to get a whole new assembly itself. So once I figured out the 7002 had this crown that fits in the SKX case, and I can take a stem that fits the 436 movement, I basically had an SKX that can hand wind and have hacking seconds. And this was like revolutionary for me.
I was waiting for you to say that word hacking second the whole time. And I was like, I love how you explained it so dumbed down in a way. It's like a flow chart. Literally, I can imagine like because X, Y, Z happened, now A, B, and C has to happen.
Correct.
And it just keeps going infinitely. And none of that would have started if you just didn't even buy the watch or even try to learn about it in the first place.
Right. And so once I got this successful, I guess, customization or upgrade done, I wanted to share it, but there was no one to share it with. Because I know from like all the people on the forums that people would really want this type of upgrade as well for their watches. So I did what anyone else would do, is I posted a video on YouTube on this. And YouTube has been a very interesting thing where I've also been doing YouTube for a very long time.
Oh, really?
Not watches itself, but like other hobbies, you know?
Was it music? I think you told me.
There was one point it was music, but I started YouTube when I was like 8 years old.
Whoa.
This was back in the days when you can post video responses to other people. And there's this whole community built on whatever hobby you're into at that time. So you can share whatever cool things you picked up or learned about, and other people can post replies as comments or as video responses. And it was just a very fun time for me. And that was one of the outlets where if I had a hobby, there was always somewhere where I can post things and interact with other like-minded people. And so with watches, I naturally posted a video on that, not knowing how many views it would get or who would watch it. I figured it would be a good resource for other people because there wasn't anything that I could find. And this whole Seiko modding or customization thing was pretty much non-existent. It was mostly watchmakers talking about this stuff.
Okay.
Where like, oh, I need this set of hands, but I can't get a replacement. Is there something that I can get in the meanwhile for this customer?
Oh, interesting.
And so that they kind of share the compatibility rules through needs of servicing opposed to just customization. And eventually at some point, there were one or two people, I guess kind of like me, who wanted to have Seiko modding or customization as a thing, and they started releasing parts. But it wasn't like all these bezels and bezel inserts and cases that you see nowadays. It was just very simple dial and hands. Those are all you had. There was a dial that looked like a Black Bay, snowflake hands, and those were hot for a super while.
And who were making these components at that time?
There's not that many brands really. I know one of them started out as a Seiko modding parts maker, but eventually became a micro brand, MK2.
Okay.
MK2 watch.
That sounds really familiar. I think I've definitely seen them. Okay.
They're a popular micro brand, but I know the owner started as like a Seiko modding enthusiast, and he had some of his Seiko parts with his logo as well, and you can still find them very deep in the internet. He probably thought, if I can make these parts, I might as well try to make my own watch, and I completely resonate with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's like two separate businesses. So how did that first video do? Like when you posted it about Seiko mods, or like people commenting on your videos because they're finding it, and then it's kind of like giving you motivation to like, oh, there's other people who like modding, I should continue. And
it was more of my interest in it more than anything else. I didn't really pay attention to the comments or anything because I learned very early on that people can be very savage online.
Okay, so some people are trolling and some people are actually like genuine, like you don't know, it's a mixed bag.
So I've developed like a thick skin at a very early age, I think, when I was like, again, like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And people were commenting like whatever. And I realized, oh, these are crazy people and I shouldn't really interact with them. So I'm just going to do my thing. You guys can watch and do something if you enjoy it, but I'm not going to really pay attention. I'm just going to do my thing. And so after I got like these few little modding projects done, I tried to do more and find more about it and just be more involved. I tackled on crystals, I tackled on bezels, bezel inserts, and I was posting about every little thing I found about. Some of those videos are hidden now because I realized they're just gibberish, but they were helpful for me to learn about these things, and talking about it really helped me understand it more because I wanted to be able to present something. And so I had to do a little bit of research to know or try to share or teach this information to other people online. That's how it went. I just learned something, post a video about it, learn more, post videos, and as that grew, there's definitely people who wanted me to do it for them.
Yeah.
Let's say the SKX movement upgrade that I was talking about.
What was like your first customer?
I think it had to be one of those SKX movement upgrades. And I wouldn't call it a customer because I enjoyed the process of just working on watches so much. If I could get a new watch to do this upgrade on, I was happy because I get to get hands-on with the watch.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really ask for anything. And he was willing to pay for everything. So just a bit of my time. And I was, again, a college student in probably summer vacation with not that much to do. So it was like a little side hobby for me. And it got to a point where I got pretty good at it, if I had to say so myself, after doing like a couple dozen of them. The demand got bigger than what I could really handle, and after a while I got kind of sick of doing it.
Yeah.
I had to be honest, and so it was inevitable that I had to try to charge some people for the time because I couldn't work a summer job if I had to do all of these movement upgrades.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like how the side hustle started. But in reality, it was just a way for me to get more funds to buy more tools and to buy more watches to take apart and put them together. And at one point, I probably had like all of the Seiko SKX and just swapped all the dials between them or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just a way for me to get more hands-on and learn watchmaking in a sense.
Yeah.
But in reality, it was just watch modding, which is a very simplified version of watchmaking, in my opinion.
I mean, in a way, you're almost like your own independent workhorse because you're doing everything from every part of the production, like from inspection, you're talking with the customer too, all the way down to even if they need something fixed or they need something different, like for a future project, like you're literally a one-man show from everything. And you edit your own videos too. I know that as well, which is crazy.
I didn't realize I was doing all of that until like when it was too late.
Yeah.
When I realized how much work there was involved. I had to take in all the questions from customers, handle the emails, the PR, the marketing, the filming, editing, the actual making, even shipping.
Yeah.
Making
Oh
boxes
my
to ship
God.
out. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of time. I'm sure
my
you know
God.
this too.
Yeah,
It takes
yeah.
a while to make those boxes, to tape them up and just to get them to the post office or UPS or wherever. It's a lot of time. And
then the post office might lose your package or it might delay your package, and now you gotta help find out like where did this go, and it's like,
you got to deal with all the customer service afterwards too, like
Yeah.
the follow-up questions. They have problems with it. How are you
Yeah.
gonna handle it? Do you take in the watch back? Are you gonna make them a new thing or repair it? Like there's just a lot of work, and despite all of that, there was a very big sense of satisfaction
yeah.
of being able to do this all because I was able to learn how a small business kind of starts. Once you get good at it or you realize it's too much work, that's when you start delegating it to other people. But for now, I've been focusing on improving what I'm able to do opposed to handing these skills off to other people, which
Yeah.
is kind of where I am right now. I'm still in the growing phase and definitely faded away from the customizing and modding scene for more than a few reasons, but just try to learn more about watchmaking in a sense. The hardcore watchmaking with the independence and just not swapping out hands, but actually making the hands, not swapping out movements, but just realizing how movements are made.
That's incredible. Like now you're going like a step backwards, but like more overview of how to actually produce these components and everything.
Correct. There was a time where I was just hustling and just getting these custom Seikos made, and there was no time for me to actually learn how to do the manufacturing side.
Yeah.
And of course, I could design something and have someone else manufacture it for me, which is what a lot of brands do, micro brands, big brands alike. I mean, even these big watch corporations, they do that.
They outsource to other manufacturers and then, you know, put your logo on it at the end.
The CEO isn't the one making the parts.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
I don't know, some independent watchmakers, yeah, definitely. They do everything in-house. And so that's the kind of focus that I wanted to do, but it was more of a time constraint because I had to do these customizing orders.
Yeah.
So I decided to tone it down a little bit because I really wanted to improve my craft instead of doing the same thing. I really wanted to just do it and try to ignore the order side of things because I didn't get into this to make money.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to know how these things are made and get more hands-on with it.
What if a independent watchmaker was like, Eric, I saw your videos, I saw your passion, I want you to work for me. How would you feel if someone came up to you, like one of your idols in the industry? And who would the idol be too?
That's very hard to think about. It's easier to say right now, I think, than in the actual position. But what I want to be able to do is I wouldn't mind working there for a bit and just being an apprentice in a sense.
Yeah.
Just to learn these things because it's so much more easier to learn when you're actually in the environment of experts who've been doing this for a while and have all their processes down. And after developing and learning all these skills, I can hopefully branch out and do my own thing later on. And so I wouldn't see myself working there permanently. I'd want to work there for a bit just to learn and get more hands-on.
I mean, I think that's actually how a lot of the watch industry is like built upon, like, you know, the original brands when they're all watchmakers, they would apprentice with other brands, and you always hear stories of, oh, this new brand has opened and this guy used to work with FP Journe and this guy used to work with Daniel Roth, and then, you know, it's always like that in the industry. So it's not uncommon. Would there be any idol that you have in mind that you would like want to work with?
I'd really like to be able to work under Jay Shapiro if I had the chance.
Okay, cool.
I had the pleasure of meeting him at HSNY. I just think his watches are so beautiful. His work with Guilloche and his whole story as well really resonated with me. The owner used to be a school principal, if I'm not mistaken.
Whoa.
And he's not trained in watchmaking as far as I know. He kind of learned it by himself. Knowing that and seeing what type of watches he produces right now, it kind of motivates me to try to be the same as an aspiring independent, to be able to make watches as beautiful as he does in his facility. There's also another independent watchmaker in Australia. He has a watchmaking business called Nicholas Hacko.
Okay.
And he also has a manufacturing business called NH Micro. In Australia, from what I heard, is there are no real independent watchmakers aside from him, and there is no manufacturer who deals with super high-end precision as he does. And so he's basically the only supplier of very high-end precise parts in Australia.
In all of Australia.
Correct. They don't have the machinery there just because how far off they are. The whole process he shares and his obsession with precision and accuracy and just machining, this engineering side of it is what gets me really excited.
So one of your most viral videos on your YouTube channel is about a Seiko mod that you made. And I think it's something that's like a trademark of LumeShot. Can you tell me about what that one is?
So that watch is called the Blood Moon, as I named it. And
I love the name, by the way. It is so epic.
Thank you. Yeah, that watch was, I guess, during the peak of my watch modding or customization thing, where if I had an idea, I would make a video about it. Just show me building it, and if anybody's interested, they can commission one from me.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect it to be that popular. Like, no one expects a video to go viral. It was the peak of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
So we didn't have much to do. And I got super into video editing and filming, photography. Because before, I didn't really care how I filmed things. I just turned on the camera, put everything on auto, and just record and talk. But during the pandemic, I really got the time to learn about how a camera worked, how to shoot good video, how to do proper lighting, exposure, how to do all these fancy editing. And so my Blood Moon video was one of my earlier works of learning how to edit properly.
Yeah.
Not just cut, paste, cut, paste, but actually adding effects and like, you know, motion graphics and all that stuff. After that video got posted, it kind of blew up. It reached like 1 million views in who knows how long. And then shortly after 2 million and then 3 million.
3 million? Yeah. Oh my God.
And I was like thinking, oh, maybe I just did really good in the editing side of things.
Yeah.
And so I posted another video right after that, and that also kind of exploded.
Yeah.
That got like 1 million views, and I think
Whoa.
2 million views now or something. And it was back to back. And so, oh, maybe I got this algorithm right.
Yeah.
But no, I think it was just like part of it was a very fun editing for viewers to enjoy, but also I think they just really enjoyed the watches that I made. And so the Blood Moon started getting massive inquiries, and I honestly couldn't keep up with it. One, because of time, but most importantly, the parts aren't available.
Can you break it down to me? Because I don't remember how it looks in person. What parts do you need to produce a Blood Moon?
So it was a very simple breakdown. You need a case back crown, movement, dial hands, chaptering crystal, bezel, and bezel insert, and of course a strap. You're just assembling parts that are already manufactured. But the dial is an OEM Seiko dial, which you can buy online. And I used a dial with red accents on it, and that's why I called it the Blood Moon. And also because the other parts like the chaptering has red accents, the ceramic bezel insert has red accents, the sapphire crystal is double dome sapphire with red AR coating on the underside.
Oh, that's even cooler.
And so it kind of looks like a moon with a dome crystal, and it's red, so why not call it a
You
Blood
have
Moon?
like the glow of like the red moon. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the problem with that build was that the dial that I used was already from a discontinued watch.
I was going to say, like, it's going to be hard to continue to source the dial if this is a watch that is not going to be in production.
Correct. And when you have 2 million views or 3 million views on a particular model, a lot of inquiries are going to come in for that. And when I can only produce about 5 of them in total,
Yeah.
it's a problem.
Oh my God.
Right? The demand is there. I just can't make it because the parts aren't there or they're not available and there's no way to get it because it's discontinued.
Yeah.
That's when I started looking into, okay, maybe I should just make my own dial because that's the real part that's limiting me. And so I haven't announced this anywhere online yet, but I have a Blood Moon dial made under my LumeShot brand.
Ooh.
And I actually have it here today.
Oh my God.
And I can maybe get your first impressions.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm so excited. I have actually never handled the blood moon that Eric makes. I've only seen the video like everyone else, and I've been a fan of Eric since then. I'm very happy to be friends with Eric to get this opportunity.
So here is the blood moon.
Whoa.
In this case, and this is still kind of like a prototype.
So I just want to say, I love the case that Eric brought it in. He brought it in the official watch servicing case where there's like a film that keeps everything exactly in place.
That one might actually go to customers, so I'm trying to keep it as nice as possible.
Okay, so I will make sure I barely leave my mark on this one.
So
whoa.
The dial, if you take a look at it, it has my LumeShot logo on it. Underneath, there's the blood moon text in red, and that particular variant is a special kind of version of the blood moon because the blood moon was originally a time-only watch with day and date. I decided to make a blood moon GMT. So this is a blood moon GMT with the GMT movement, a red GMT hand, and the dial of this blood moon is similar but not the same as the Seiko blood moon that I made.
Yeah.
I wanted to make some improvements and I wanted to make it different because I want to make it my own with that LumeShot logo on there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Could you tell me what are some differences and improvements you made on your dial versus the original blood moon?
So with this watch, we have a GMT function, first of all. The dial, as a result of that, has GMT markings on it, going from 24 around. The minute track along the outer circumference is in red. This has a date, whereas the original had a day date. Obviously the logos, the name, they're all a little bit different. And so I know people really like the design, so I didn't want to stray too much from it, but at the same time, I wanted to make it kind of like my own, and this is the result of it. And there's also other variants that I have made. There is a date-only version for those who don't need a GMT. There's also a day-date version that I have made with a day-date window. And so there's a lot of variations that I made, and these will be available soon. I've actually have been making them for customers already who have been inquiring about it. It's just I'm not really 100% done with the design because I may want to change out the hands.
Yeah.
Or do some subtle improvements before I make it official because I want to get it right.
I want to name a few cool things that I'm noticing about this watch. You have the bezel. It's a ceramic bezel with a red triangle at the top, so it's kind of calling into the theme of the blood moon. I can now see the sapphire crystal with the AR coating that's in red that also gives off that like red glow to it. Also, even on the crown has a little moon logo on it. Is this something an improvement as well? Like that wasn't on the original?
Right. On the original design, we just had an S on it. But on this one, since it's my own, I actually engraved that myself. So I engraved all the crowns with the moon. I figured it would be a nice touch. I also engraved the case backs myself. So it has the blood moon logo and the LumeShot logo on there as well, along with some other markings around it.
This is amazing. I mean, it's so crazy to see that you've made the watch yourself, not just from modding it like you would tell me, but like to do the engravings by yourself is also like a whole nother level.
So this is kind of like my micro brand of watches.
Yeah.
LumeShot is a micro brand where I can do some handwork, as you said, with the engraving. I do the entire assembly, the QC, everything is done by me. It's just I don't make the parts themselves, and which is what a lot of micro brands do. They have the parts outsourced, and maybe the owner assembles them in his own office, or they have it assembled overseas. But this is my micro brand if I had to consider it.
Wow. I'm sure whoever the customer is for this watch is going to be super happy. So this is the first time ever you're going to see the new LumeShot Blood Moon. Obviously, if you're interested in the Blood Moon or other watches, you can always reach out to Eric from LumeShot.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you for showing me this. This is amazing.
Of course.
This is so incredible that you've made this.
I like being able to do this because it allows me to make a watch with a particular design and have fun with it, because I'm not having to spend hours figure out how do I make this part myself in-house. I can outsource parts and have them made for me, which allows me to strictly focus on the design itself and have hopefully a lot of watches made.
Yeah.
And just have fun with it. But obviously, knowing my personality, this is not where I want to stop.
Yeah.
I want to be able to manufacture things myself as well, which is how I started my sub-brand or my other brand called Yoon Watches, which is my more serious watchmaking or manufacturing side of watches.
I am very lucky to say that I am an owner of a Yoon watch that Eric gifted me a few years back. Tell me about Yoon Watches. How did this start and what projects do you have in the pipeline right now?
Yoon Watches started from my desire to essentially try to be an independent watchmaker. I don't really want to call myself that because I'm just so far away from being able to do all that stuff right now.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of in the learning phase of how do I make a dial? How do I make hands? How do I make cases? What type of machinery do I need? What type of tools or knowledge do I need to be able to do all of this in-house? I'm in the development phase of trying to learn all of this by myself. And I'm not trained, or I didn't go to watchmaking school. I'm not trained in manufacturing. I have a degree in chemistry, which is more in the healthcare side of things opposed to manufacturing side of things. And so this is a entirely new realm for me where I have to figure everything out myself. And so I figured, well, eventually I'm gonna be posting things and trying to make my own watch. And I decided to call that Yoon Watches, where I'm making the parts instead of outsourcing it. So Yoon is my, I guess, quote unquote independent, if I really had to break it down simply. And LumeShot is my micro brand. So serious watchmaking versus fun design work, as I like to put it.
Yeah.
I actually have another watch to show you, which is from my Yoon brand of watch.
Let's see it.
So this piece is also a customer piece. I asked if we can keep it in the case.
Okay, no problem.
This one is a piece that I've been working on for, I guess, the past 6 months or so. Just trying to figure out things. How do I make stuff? And I don't even have a name for this. I don't know what it's called. I just made something. This is not entirely made by me. I did not make the case. I did not make the movement. I did not make the crown. And by make, I mean I didn't start off with a block of metal and cut it or machine it to those parts. What I did make on that is the dial, the hands, and the leather strap I made. So what we have on the dial is actually a two-piece construction. The base dial, as I like to call it, is from a material called Damascus, which is basically a Damascus form of titanium, where if I had to explain what that is, you take very thin sheets of titanium and it's forged. So basically you squish it, you turn it, you mush it up, you make a block out of it essentially. And that's how you get all of these different swirls. And those are layers of titanium that have been forged together.
Oh, okay. So I'm like looking at it from the side, essentially.
One of the views where it's been cut.
Okay.
Because it started off as a bar stock, and on top of it, the owl markers are actually made of argentium, which is a form of sterling silver. And argentium actually has more silver content than sterling silver, so it's more silver than sterling silver, if I had to explain it in simple terms again. The hands are also made in argentium, and so there's a combination of semi-precious metals and just a cool metal, being that titanium Damascus in it. I wanted to make the case out of an interesting material as well. So the case is Damascus, steel Damascus.
Oh, steel Damascus. Okay.
So you can see how the ridges and the patterns of the cases kind of resemble that of the dial.
Yes.
And that's because those two metals are forged in the similar or same way. And so what I had to do was I took a bar stock of that titanium Damascus, cut it off, processed it on my lathe, finished it. I had a sheet of argentium, which I processed or finished, put it in my CNC mill, milled out the dial, and then did a bunch of hand filing, hand polishing, and just the same with the hands. The hands started out from a sheet of argentium that I had to mill out. And then from there, after you put in the material in the machine, it doesn't come out finished. There's a lot of hand work that has to be done.
You still have to hand finish like polishing and then even doing like the angles and everything.
Correct. There's a lot of burrs and just machining marks. And so you have to file it out smooth, and then you have to polish that bevels, and just a lot of work goes into these parts. And it being watch parts is just a lot harder to do because they're just so small.
Yeah.
What I love about watchmaking is that there's so many different types of manufacturing skills needed to get this done. Micro mechanics of it, there's like big scale mechanics of it. You're making very small parts from like a screw from a movement to a big case.
What is your goal with Yoon Watches? Like you did produce this case, you said.
I did not make the case.
Okay, but it has the design of the Damascus.
Correct. So that was outsourced.
Okay, gotcha.
So I had that made for me. But the only reason why I'm outsourcing right now is I just don't know how to make it.
Yeah. So is that your goal? Like you want to be able to do everything in-house?
Correct. And I actually have a case design that I'm designing right now on CAD, programming up the cam for it.
You even know how to do CAD. That's like you're an official jeweler if you know how to use CAD.
Correct. So I do the CAD cam work for the dial and the hands for that as well. And I'm working on the case and the crown and all the other parts right now. And currently I'm making a new shop where I'm investing in some very expensive equipment.
You're talking about like your workspace, right?
Correct. Yeah. The machinery is coming, which will hopefully allow me to be able to manufacture these cases in-house, the crowns in-house, and just all those parts basically. And maybe later on I'll venture into making a movement but that's
a whole nother thing.
That's very daunting. I didn't go to school for watchmaking.
Yeah.
So I have to learn all this stuff. And so I'm going to start off with, making a dial, which I already done, making hands, which I've done in this watch, chapter rings I can make. Next step is to make a case and a crown, case back, and before you know it, I'll have a watch that's completely made by me, minus the movement.
Yeah.
Which is what I want to get at.
So with your experience of making your own watches, how has your perception of like watches that you see in the industry, like when watch brands release new watches, I'm sure you have a different reaction to them than when you first started, when you were first like a kid in uni looking at watches? Like, how's your perception changed now?
It's changed quite a lot. From when I started, watches were this fun little object that was cool to wear around and enjoy and just collect. There's a lot of ways for watches to be involved in your day-to-day life, from your outfits, meeting other people, talking about it. But for me, as I started learning more about how watches are made, I started to view watches as components. So when I look at watches from Breguet, I look at what type of guilloche work did they do on this dial. If I look at a Lange, I look at the movement, or what kind of englaging work did they do, what parts are black polished. It's just all the watches now look like components to me.
Wow.
Which is kind of sad in a sense, but also really nice, because when a brand does it really well, it's just that much more impressive in my eyes.
So what is an example of a watch that you've been really impressed with lately?
I think it's been a continuous appreciation for J.N. Shapiro. Every time I see his watches, it's just so beautiful. There is another watchmaker in South Korea called Min-hoon Yoon.
I've heard of that.
He's an independent in South Korea, and I really like his work as well. He posts videos on Instagram and YouTube, and I love watching that stuff. He shows how he does all these englaging and beveling, and there's just so many independent brands that are cool to just see how they make these watches. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, where when a new brand releases a watch, it's cool, but if it's not filled with these particular, hardcore watchmaking details, it's kind of hard for me to get super into it.
That makes sense. When you see watch brands release their new watches, do you also feel like not impressed by certain watches too? Because you're like, I kind of know all the processes, and now based on this price point, I feel like this brand is charging too much and giving too little. Like, do you ever have those kind of feelings too?
Yes, definitely there are times, and I'm not trying to be arrogant or just downplay any brands. I think every brand is incredible, right? They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but you get to notice these little things where not everyone will talk about, where how on movement bridges, sometimes they have englage work done.
Okay.
And the inner corners of englaging are the hardest to achieve.
That's like the inside, like how do you get a tool or to
right, so you have to carefully bevel and polish those sharp corners to make it nice.
Yeah.
Some brands will kind of cheap out. They will make the top of the bevel very sharp, but the bottom remains kind of rounded.
But like, I guess for their point of view, like a lot of people won't see that part compared to the top.
Exactly.
So they're like, okay, we have a tolerance level of acceptance where we could just kind of skip this part because it's a little too difficult. It might take the production too long. But that's cool, because there's still going to be people like you who can eye this stuff. And to be honest, I know a lot of collectors who can catch these things too. They are like really into how the watch is produced and made, and they want to make sure that what they're paying for is worth the money too.
It's completely understandable for big brands to do this, because there's also ways for you to tell whether a bridge was worked on by hand or not.
Yeah.
And those features with the englaging are one of the key ways to tell, a watchmaker physically had to cut these bevels. And even though he didn't do it all the way, there's still handwork done in this movement. And I still appreciate all of that.
What would you say are some other key ways that you can tell if something's been machine finished versus by hand, aside from the englage? Like, you're just looking at a bunch of different watches on a table. How do you know, like, what are the key features that you notice?
So as perfect as watchmakers and brands try to be, or independent makers who do handwork, humans aren't perfect.
Yeah.
And so you can tell imperfections are there,
yeah,
which isn't like a blatant mark or
but it's
dent.
not like a bad thing. It's
right.
It's more so like that's the mark of a human, like someone actually did it.
Correct. You can tell this was handmade,
yeah,
in a sense, opposed to machining where everything is just kind of look uniform, and that's not good.
It could look like flat, right?
Right. And just some things can be done with machining, to be honest. You have to do these things by hand. That's why a lot of brands do black polishing by hand, because it's just hard to do it with machinery, and sometimes it just makes more sense to do it by hand. So there are ways for collectors and makers alike to know whether something has been hand worked on. And those are the type of pieces that really interest me, because even though it's not perfect, I really appreciate the fact that someone had to take the time to individually file, polish, and just make the watch beautiful.
I've learned so much, like just sitting down talking with you today and just learning about your whole history. I don't want to miss this because I saw you brought out a watch on the table here. So I just want to bring this up real quick before we kind of like close things out.
So this piece is a special piece in my collection that I will never sell. This is my Ming 1709, and it's not any old Ming, but it's kind of like a limited edition in 50 pieces for a watch group that I'm a part of called Watch Club Society. And this group of people are just super friendly, very helpful. And after the pandemic, I wanted to try to meet actual people who are into watches. Because before then, which isn't that long ago if you think about it, I've been doing this by myself. Just enjoying watches on my own, not knowing anyone who's into watches. But because of the pandemic, everyone's forced to go online. And I guess the desire to meet other people got so big that everyone was already planning these watch meetups, and everyone like, oh, once we're able to see each other, let's all hang out at this venue. I happened to find one of those events and be a part of it, and got to join Watch Club Society shortly after I met you, Derek, and all of our mutual friends. And so this piece kind of represents the community of all the incredible, kind, and just amazing people that I've met through this hobby.
I've definitely seen this, obviously, because I've known Eric and I know some of the other Watch Club Society members, so shout out to them. The dial here is something special for the Watch Club Society, right? Like the dial is like these infinite steps, but they're on different levels, like up and down. Do you know a little bit about that story, like how they decided this? I think also James waitlisted. So if you're a fan of watch photography, and now James has Fleming.
Correct.
So now he's working with his own independent watchmaking. You know, he would always post Ming watches. So I think he had a lot of input on this watch as well.
James is one of the first people I met in this community, like in person.
Yeah.
James is just so down to earth. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
He's just super fun and funny to be around with. He's friendly with Ming. And so him and some other collectors from our group managed to persuade Ming to make this special edition for us in 50 pieces, and it will never go up for sale. The rule is we will only keep it in the group. And so this watch is just very sentimental. It means a lot of things to me.
Well, thank you for bringing this watch out with you today. I don't even know how to close this out. Like, there's just so much to digest today. The way you look at things is like the one thing I would take away from all of this. Like, the way you look at things is so different than I've ever thought about looking at watches before.
I think that just speaks to how broad this hobby can be. For as niche as it is, there's so many different fields or aspects you can get into. You could be a hardcore collector knowing all the facts. I don't know any facts. I don't really know much about the history. I'm more interested in the manufacturing side. But it's great that we're all tied into watches as a whole. Because I know you run a business in watches, which is a whole nother industry or a part of watches. And so the fact that all of us who have different sub-interests in watches can still come together and talk about these things and be interested in what each other has to say. Because when you talk about your business, I'm super interested.
Yeah, off camera, we were talking about just like YouTube and setup and everything. And that was already really interesting. When you were doing LumeShot, I remember you did a watch for one of our idols in photography, Peter McKinnon. When I saw that collab or like that video come up, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. I know Eric. And like, I always watch Peter McKinnon videos. Like, I just want to learn about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Peter McKinnon reached out to me shortly after my second kind of viral video. I used a lot of filmmaker techniques in the editing process, and I actually learned those techniques from his videos.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't message Peter or do anything with that. He just reached out to me, DM me one day on Instagram because he's into watches, but he also thought my editing was cool. And of course, someone who literally watched his video the night before to do some editing, I was like, oh my God.
You're like, is this real?
Yeah, I had to go to this page and verify. Like, I had to close the app, open it again, and try to read this message. And I connected with Peter McKinnon. Peter McKinnon wanted to collaborate on a video, and I was obviously more than happy to do that. I can make a fun watch for him, and he can talk about it on his channel. I can show more people about this side of watches aside from mere collecting.
I remember watching the video on Peter McKinnon's channel. Then your edit comes in and it's like all your video with all the close-ups and everything. And every time I watch Eric's videos, I'm like, I will never have editing as cinematic and amazing like this. I am just such a fan of Eric and what he does with the video size, but also what he's been doing with Yoon and LumeShot. Honestly, this has been long overdue to like sit down and like talk it like in this way, because I feel like every time we sit down, we're just talking about like things that are currently happening versus like looking back at stuff together. And I'm just really happy to call you a friend and be able to go down this journey with you, and honestly just to know you, because like you mentioned, you have a side of the watch industry that I don't even think about. And it's like, it blows my mind, honestly.
Well, I appreciate you, Derek, and I'm very thankful to have met you, to call you a good friend, allowing me to talk about my story here, which I've never done. So I don't know if any of this made sense. I apologize to everyone if it didn't make any sense.
I learned so much, but also I can only remember a few things here and there. Last thing, if you just wanted to say one last thing, what would that be? Like anything you want to just let out that you haven't said?
Again, thank you for allowing me to come on your channel and just having all this set up for me. I hope to be able to improve my watchmaking and proudly call myself an independent watchmaker one day. And maybe, or I hope that you continue to do YouTube so I can come on and show you and hopefully get your feedback on those watches that I make in the future.
So let's set the date. A year or so from now, we're going to check in and see how Eric and LumeShot and Yoon Watches has progressed. But Eric, thanks so much again for coming on and sharing your story. If you like videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.